without further ado, we'd love to introduce our speaker for tonight. His name is Brendan, and he's the head of product management ecosystem at Atlassian. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thanks. All right, well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out for this conversation on what is it on enabling e-commerce products to succeed. A little background on myself before I start. Currently, I'm head of product management for ecosystem at Atlassian. So what I do in my role and my team does is we build capabilities for developers to build apps. And then from an e-commerce perspective, we then promote and sell these apps both in our online marketplace as well as our in-product marketplaces. I've been at Atlassian for about 8 months. Prior to Atlassian, I was at Sears in the greater Chicago area where I ran product management for Sears.com and Kmart.com, and then later product management and product marketing for the online marketplace. Before that, I was at Microsoft for about 9 years, and both at Microsoft and at Sears, I also did digital advertising focused on consumers. So that's a little bit of my background. So, again, the topic tonight is, how do e-commerce products succeed? And when we talk about e-commerce, we're talking about a massive market. When we look at it on a global basis, it's a $10 trillion a year market. In the U.S. alone, U.S. retail e-commerce accounts for about 10% of sales, growing at 15% per annum. And it's a similar growth rate on the B2B side as well. But when we talk about e-commerce products, exactly what do we mean by a product? I mean, it's not a product that you ship, necessarily like packaged software that you ship or a product that you can touch and feel, but what do we mean by an actual product? And so the way I think about an e-commerce product, it really is the end-to-end experience that you're delivering for your target customer, whether it's a consumer or whether it's a business-to-business customer. And the way that we deliver this experience to our target customers is through mobile. And we're going to talk a lot about mobile and the rapid growth of mobile as a key driver within e-commerce, through desktop, and also through emerging devices. I think we're all familiar with Alexa and Google Assistant, in terms of voice-driven search and e-commerce right in your home, all of which are channels through which we can deliver this experience. Now, broadly speaking, when we think about e-commerce, we typically divide it between top of funnel and bottom of funnel, but we need to think about it from an end-to-end perspective. So top of funnel covers things, and we're going to talk about each of these areas. Traffic, in terms of how are people getting to our experience? How are people getting to our experience through earned media, through our brand, through keywords, through search engine optimization, as well as through paid media. And when they get to our experience, are they landing on the home page? What sort of key messages do we want to deliver on the home page? If we don't know anything about you, what's the first impression we want you to have? Or if we don't know anything about you, what do we want to incent you to do so that we can learn more about you? And then if you've come to, whether it's a B2B or a B2C site, one of the two top ways that we try to get you to the products that you're interested in are through search and browse on the site, which are both critical ways to get you, to products and ultimately to convert. Category pages, maybe you don't know exactly what you want. So let's say you're thinking about an appliance, but you're not sure what appliance to buy. You may visit a category page to learn more, to educate yourself on the particular product. But ultimately, whether you come to the home page, search, browse, category pages, or direct to the product page, we want to get you to the product page as quickly as we can, to a relevant product page, so that you can then on that product page provide you with the information that you need to make a purchase decision. That's when the bottom of funnel kicks in. Once you've added to cart, we want to make sure that we get you through the bottom of the funnel as fast as possible, like in terms of getting you to check out, but at the same time, do whatever we can to identify what other products might you be interested in that would be complementary to what you've just added to cart. And then after you check out, there's a post-purchase experience, the email that you receive, the other products we may highlight in that email. And then across the experience, ultimately we want to deliver an end-to-end seamless experience Personalization plays a huge role. The more I know about you, the more I can customize the content that I present to you, and the more we can increase conversion. And location awareness, which is increasingly important for mobile. Ultimately, what we want to do is help you in your journey to discover the products you want, to make it easy and fast to get to the products you want, but to also maximize average order value, to make sure that when you come to a site, whether it's B2B or B2C, we're optimizing the experience so that we're presenting as many products we think are going to be relevant to you as possible. But ultimately, we do not, regardless of whether it's B2B or B2C, we want to encourage the return visit. That's critical. If we fail, if you come to the site once and never return. We succeed if you're a repeat purchaser, especially in retail. So that's how I think about the product. The product is all of this, and it's delivering a seamless experience that enables a scenario end to end that gets you to ultimately to the products and services that you want. Now, what's driving the market broadly? You know, one of the things that I think everybody is going to be very familiar with is mobile. Today, mobile drives about 40% of e-commerce transactions in the U.S. and growing rapidly. Mobile, and we're going to talk about mobile because mobile presents opportunities in terms of lots of people use mobile, but challenges in terms of conversion and engagement. What's very tied closely to mobile is social. So 80% of social engagement, whether it's Facebook, Pinterest, or Instagram, is done on a mobile device. And retailers recognize this. Increasingly, they're seeing, hey, how can I introduce my products in the context of what you're doing on Pinterest? So for example, Pinterest offers shop the look. So as I'm looking at a pinned item, I can buy the product, add it to cart, and buy the product. And the conversion rates are significantly higher through those offerings versus others. Omnichannel. Mobile plays a huge role in this. But it's not just mobile. It's being able to buy online and pick up in store. Or if you're in the store and they don't have the product, oftentimes there'll be a store associate that has a mobile device or tablet that then can order the product for you and have it shipped to your home. Or being able to buy online and have it be shipped to your home from the store. So you know that we all know that Amazon recently purchased Whole Foods, and today they just announced that for Prime members, you'll be able to buy online groceries and then have them delivered to your home within 2 hours from the store. Mobile plays a huge role in the store experience as well. We're going to talk about near field communications. If you're near the store, being able to push notifications to you about promotions that could be of interest. If you're in the store, being able to not only help you navigate the store for the products that you want, but also push notifications and deals and other things to you as you roam in the store. A big opportunity that still hasn't completely come to fruition. Voice search. 20% of the searches that happen on Google Mobile happen through voice. And, you know, with the advent of Alexa and with Google Assistant, this is only going to grow over time. We're really only at the beginning of voice search. And then all of this, think about it as we talked about earlier, is we want to get you through, once you've made a decision, we want to get you through the funnel as quickly as possible. We want to get you to check out as quickly as possible. And that's where one-click purchasing comes into play. Amazon, for years and years and years, had a patent on one-click purchasing and the experience. That patent expired October of last year. So expect a lot of retailers who have been somewhat hesitant to mimic that experience to now implement that, whether through mobile or desktop. And then lastly, the consumerization of B2B. So we're all consumers. We also all go to work and we make purchase decisions at work. And increasingly, a lot of the expectations that we have as consumers are going to play out in the B2B e-commerce market. We're just at the beginning of what's possible for B2B as it relates to e-commerce. So B2C, which gets all the attention in terms of retail, is a $2.3 trillion market globally. B2B is $7.7 trillion. In fact, 50% of B2B customers are planning to make their purchases online this year. But there's significant differences there are differences between these. With B2C, it's an individual. You know, as we all know, we research and then we buy products ourselves. It's simple. In other words, there's one price. We don't have the opportunity to negotiate the price as consumers. And this is a very advanced market, meaning it's highly competitive with low margins, but a lot of well-advanced capabilities like site personalization and things of that nature. Now, B2B, this is where I get excited, is because there's so much that we can do that in B2C, the tactics that have worked for retail, we can apply them in a B2B market. So B2B, it's a little different because, like, as a purchaser, I may have a budget. I may have the ability to make a purchase, but it has to go through a workflow of approvals. In the case of a company selling software online, whether it's Microsoft or Atlassian and so forth, customers are not only researching and then immediately buying. They want to try the product out for, say, 30 days or whatever, and then buy. So it's much more of a considered purchase, more of a purchase where they take their time to make sure that it's going to meet their needs. Also, is more complex. You know, some software companies are able to charge a single price, you know, for their software, but more often than not, it's tiered pricing based on the number of users within an organization. And depending on the software company, it could involve negotiated discounts or partial orders, whether it's a B2B software company or a company like Grainger. You know, once you get above a certain volume threshold, things become more negotiable. And like I said, we're really at an early stage as it relates to B2B in terms of what's possible. What I thought we would do now I've kind of painted a big picture of, all right, what is e-commerce? What's driving the market? Let's now walk through the experience. I'm going to walk through a number of screenshots from a number of different retailers, mostly B2C, but a couple B2B, and talk about what's going on here in terms of how is the retailer likely thinking, and what are they trying to do, you know, at each step of the way. Again, we'll talk through all the different stages of the funnel, top of funnel and bottom of funnel. We'll also talk about personalization. But the very first start is, how do we get traffic to the site? And the reason I want to start with search engine optimization is that oftentimes, like when I was at Sears and also at Atlassian, search engine optimization does fall in the realm of us as product managers in terms of how do we optimize the content on the site so that we're recognized as an authority. This becomes even more important in B2B because oftentimes the way transactions start is not by going to the home page of the B2B site. It's by doing a search in Google. I've got a problem, so I'm going to type in some keywords, and then if my products show up in organic search, I click through directly to the product page. So while search engine optimization is hugely important in retail because you don't have to spend money on it, it's also really important in B2B as well. But what is search engine optimization? It covers a broad range of areas in terms of how do you optimize your content so that you're recognized as an authority by Google and Bing, but not optimizing your content so much that Google or Bing think, oh, you're trying to game the system. But some of the approaches to optimization include the content that you include on the site, keyword density, the types of keywords that you're using that are relating to keywords, how keywords are integrated into the HTML on your page, both image and in headers, site crawlability, canonical links. Canonical links are, if I have multiple pages that have very similar content, like Google or Bing need to know, well, what is the page that is the one that I should index? Because if they don't know that, then they're going to tend to index all of them and all of the pages, and all of the pages will then result in lower results because they have lesser traffic, you know, like associated with them from a crawling perspective. So there's a lot of things that we can do from an on-page optimization perspective. There's also things that we can do off-page in terms of links from authority sites, content marketing, writing articles that appear on other sites that have authority in the industry that we're operating in, but then link to us, social marketing, and a lot of other things. This whole discipline is oftentimes within retailers a specialized product management area, and also in B2B e-commerce as well. Now, so that's search engine optimization. Great thing about search engine optimization, doesn't cost anything. The other thing that doesn't cost anything is and these items like lower on the page are more in the realm of marketing within whether it's B2B or B2C. But I think it's just worthwhile touching on them because getting qualified traffic to the site is such an important starting point for e-commerce. Direct-to-site traffic is very much a function of your brand. To what degree are people recognizing you as the category leader? Take Amazon, for example. 50% of searches, product searches, start on Amazon today. People typing in Amazon.com and doing searches. That's why Amazon accounts for 50% of the retail e-commerce market. These other items, search engine marketing, display advertising, social, affiliates, this all falls in the realm of paid advertising. So search engine marketing is keyword bidding. Now, one of the challenges with keyword bidding is that if you're a retailer, and you're in the appliances sector, for example, chances are lots of other, like your competitors are bidding on the exact same keywords, which then bids up the price of those keywords, which increases the cost of your advertising. Display advertising, retargeting is a common tactic where if you visited a product page or if you've added something to cart, a cookie is dropped on your browser, and then that can be recognized, and as you browse other sites, ads relating to what you had put in your cart or the pages you have visited are then served up to you. Social, we talked about that and the growing interest in terms of retailers highlighting social advertising or highlighting their products in the context of what you're doing on Pinterest or on Instagram. And affiliates, where on a third-party site, if a third party directs traffic to your site and that traffic converts, then they're paid typically 1% to 2% of the purchase price. But all of this costs money, and all of this falls in the realm of paid advertising, and that's why retailers in particular, and B2B as well, spend a lot of time focusing on return on ad spend. Typically they want to get a minimum of $10 to $13 in revenue for every dollar of ad spend. And a big hot area especially in retail, where a lot of retailers are struggling, is how do you get more bang for your buck as it relates to marketing dollars? And that's where things like multi-touch attribution come into play. In other words, like understanding you as a consumer, like to what degree have keywords or display ads or social ads impacted your willingness to go to the site and buy? And if I know like how each of these different components influenced you to go to the site, I can be much more focused and targeted in how I spend to optimize the efficiency of my marketing dollars. But again, a lot of this stuff on the bottom part of the slide is in the realm of marketing, but it's also good for you as product managers to be aware of what's going on in terms of how traffic is getting to the site. All right, now let's say somebody's gotten to the home page. In this case, it's my wife. Now, in this case, Amazon, I'm using Amazon as an example. They don't know anything about me, so I'm not logged in. And so typically what a lot of retailers do, whether it's B2B or B2C, will have sort of a default hero ad, which, highlights what's the campaign that they're running, or what is it that do they think that a breadth of folks will have an interest in purchasing. There'll also be probably more of a generic, like a generic promotion that's tied to the annual promotional calendar. In this case, Valentine's Day is coming up, so I don't know anything about this person visiting the site, so I'll show them content about Valentine's Day. But note what happens when the very first time I visit the site, a dialog pops up that's prompting me to sign in. And the reason that Amazon or other retailers or B2B e-commerce players want you to sign in is that there is a significant difference in terms of lifetime value and conversion for those that sign in versus those that don't. Because if you sign in, you've taken the time to input your email address and your password, and chances are if you're signing in, then if you're signed in, now I can track what you did on the site. I can build a profile of you. And the next time you come back, I can then present a more personalized experience, which then in turn means that conversion goes up and it becomes a virtuous cycle. And that's why there's such a difference between the logged in and the not logged in end user. We'll talk a little bit about the importance of this later on when we talk about MWeb versus the mobile app. So stay tuned for that. So Amazon's asking my wife to sign in. When she signs in, what does she see? She starts to see a personalized experience. Amazon does a terrific job of this. They highlight she can access her browsing history. She can access her own Amazon.com, which is personalized recommendations based on her past browsing behavior, based on her past explicit activity in terms of purchases. She then sees categories that are most relevant to her, along with access to information, access to her profile in terms of being able to see her recent orders and so forth. So a great job in terms of now like it's basically their way of saying, we know who you are. Here's what we think you're interested in. And the more my wife engages, the more we engage, the more they learn, and the more personalized the experience, the higher the conversion and so forth. So that's the home page. Now let's say we've gotten off the home page, and we want to, we're interested in a particular type of product. So we go to the search bar. Search and browse are the two main drivers of visits once you're on the site to the product pages. So what's Nordstrom doing? So what you'll see with a lot of e-commerce sites is as you start to type, a number of options come up, like dress shirts for men, dress shirts for boys. We call this autofill. And one of the exciting areas in e-commerce is personalized search, is that if you're logged in and I have a profile about you and I know what your past purchases are, I can start to assume maybe what products you're interested in, and then the results that you get are increasingly personalized. What's also interesting about what they're doing is then showing what we call like visual navigation or visual search. So it's not just showing keywords, like showing autofill for text, but autofill for images, which are oftentimes what we see is that the presentation of images helps with conversion, especially with things like clothing or things that perhaps are less of what I'll call a considered purchase. So it's interesting what's going on here. Now I click through on dress shirts. Let's take a look at what's going on. So the results are brought up. Now what you see is we call these product cards. And in this case, it's a less considered purchase. We're not looking at appliances. We're looking at clothing. Well, it's a balance between, I want you to ultimately click through to the product page, but I want to give you just enough information so that you're comfortable in clicking through to the product page. So how do I do that? I might show one image of the shirt, but upon hover, then it'll show the back of the shirt. I'll show variants of the shirt color so that I'm signaling to you as a consumer, hey, even though you're seeing a purple shirt here, there's one in blue and white and so forth, to give you confidence in terms of clicking through. Then in the product card, I may also, what we call these tags or labels. I might label this as a great buy or X% off and make it very clear what the deal is that you're getting. What's also really important is the integration of ratings and reviews, which we also find to be a major contributor to conversion. The other thing that's really important with search, as well as with browse, are filters. So presenting the right set of filters at the top of the page, the filters that we think you're most likely going to want to use for this particular category. So in this case, things like fit, or the different categories of clothing, fit, collar style, and so forth. This is very much well thought out in terms of, well, what filters are people for this category? What are they most likely to want to engage with to provide information to get them to the next stage? Okay, so that's search. Now, a very close cousin to search is browse. And a lot of thought goes into the browse experience. What you'll oftentimes hear within retailers, B2B or B2C, is the concept of taxonomy. How do you organize your products in terms of verticals, in terms of categories and subcategories? The reason that that's important is for a couple of reasons. One, it helps with search engine optimization in terms of for engines to be able to crawl your site and understand what is the site about. Two, it also helps with search. Because one of the things we do in search is we try to narrow down the potential results as you start typing in, your search term, we do something that's called category prediction, which is, oh, okay, you seem to be typing something about appliances, so I'm predicting that I'm going to narrow the search results down to appliances. But there's a lot, so those are some of the benefits of a well thought out taxonomy. What you notice here is, well, this is a site for Home Depot. What's one of the very first things you see up here is appliances. So Home Depot realizes that, well, most people that are coming to the site, one of the top categories they want to shop for is appliances. So they'll show that in the upper left at the top of the taxonomy. The other thing that goes into thinking about taxonomy or the way you organize the site are these types of factors. What's top selling, keyword searches, when people search for products on your site, what are the most common keywords that are being used, in search engines. And then one of the techniques that's used to determine what's the optimal taxonomy. In other words, how do we as consumers naturally think about the organization of products? It's something that's called it's user experience research, what's called a card sort. So working with consumers in an experience or in a user research study, presenting them with different options on how the products on the site could be organized, and then asking the consumer to prioritize what do you think is the natural grouping of these product cards in what order. So a lot of thought goes into the organization of the site, again, to help you find the products as quickly as you can, but also to support conversion on the site. Now, in some cases, maybe you don't know what you want as a consumer. So instead of diving right to a product page, you might visit a category page. Now, one thing that's very interesting to notice, like in using a Home Depot on the left and Nordstrom on the right, is that now we're starting to get into different types of products. So you'll see, like with categories that are more of a complex or what we call considered purchase, let's say appliances, you'll see, images like, a hero ad call to action, like X% off or what have you. But you start to see access to additional information, being able to shop ranges by different types of ranges, by different colors. You may see content like buying guides, because it's recognized that, okay, this is a bigger purchase, and oftentimes you'll spend more time thinking about it and being more cautious about it. Now, with something that's a less complex purchase, let's say apparel, you'll see much larger images. It's more conveying a lifestyle. It's trying to inspire you in terms of what you could be interested in. And one thing that you'll see that's consistent across lots of category pages, if you see an offer on the home page, oftentimes what retailers will try to do is carry through the offer. So in this case, 25% off of appliances. I might have seen that on the home page for Home Depot. I'll see it on the category page. And if I then click through on a home appliance, I'll see it again highlighted on the product listing page to really emphasize to the consumer what the deal is. Same thing with apparel. You see that as well. Okay, now product pages. So here's an example of a more complex purchase. So in this case, there's nice imagery, but you'll see videos in terms of like ways to learn more about the product. You'll also see a lot more. In this case, it's an appliance. You'll see a lot more details on the product, whether it's like height, what type of appliance it is. You'll see specs that'll appear lower on the page. You won't see as much of product recommendations because this is a bigger, more considered purchase. So the retailer wants to give you as much information as you need to be able to add to cart. The section that I put in italics over here, we call this the buy box. And so that's where basically we highlight what the price is, what the deal is, but we make it very clear, like a single call to action. We want you ultimately to add to cart to get to the next stage, which is checkout. Now, with something that's a less complex purchase, let's say apparel, what do you see again? You see much larger imagery, which is again more sort of like aspirational or inspirational. But you still see the buy box in terms of, okay, giving you enough information to make a purchase, like being able to select the variant, whether it's color or size, but ultimately having a clear call to action, which is add to cart. The other thing you'll notice on the very far right is because this is a less considered purchase, you'll start seeing product recommendations appear above the fold or higher on the page. Well, if you didn't get it right in landing on this product page, here's a number of other products that you could consider. Because you're not, if it's apparel, you're not spending as much time in an intensive considered purchase because it's a less complex buy. If this isn't right for you, let us show some other products that could be. Sure, question?
So would it be safe to say that, I mean, the product owner role, the product manager's role, the product analyst, whatever you want to call it, our role in this case, what you're describing is more of a UI, user interface, strategy aspect of it in conjunction with perhaps with marketing and other departments to how it would actually be laid out for most optimized site consumption. But obviously the development of the site as well as the back end, be it pricing and how the pricing procedures may go and how inventory may get checked. I mean, obviously that's obviously the implementation effort, obviously the back end part of it.
Right.
Is that fair to say that obviously the implementation team wouldn't be able to know exactly, they will be the one deciding where it's going, but with the input of the product person who's actually deciding based on the user experience, giving them the input. Would that be fair to say that?
To a degree. So the question is, is the role of the product manager heavily focused on the user experience? And there's a back end and so on and so forth, but is it largely user experience focused? Yes, I would say yes, but like product management for e-commerce is the same as product management for a software product or a cloud product. Our role is to, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, is to think about who is our target customer. Who is the target customer? What are their what are their needs? How do they think about buying? What are they trying to do? What are their unmet needs? And then also looking at competition. So given those needs, what are competitors doing? What are they doing right? What are they doing wrong? And then saying, okay, how can we structure this experience so that we get this, in this case, a male clothing shopper through the funnel as well as we can. So a product manager focuses on the product detail page will think through all of those questions and then work very closely with the user experience designer in terms of here's what I think are the role of the product manager is to say, given who we're targeting and how we want to differentiate from competitors, here are the requirements, the functional requirements that we have for this page. We need to make sure that product recommendations appear above the fold. We need to make sure that we are showing the variants very clearly. We need to make sure that the call to action is very clear. We need to make sure that we have large imagery, because from our research, we've determined that large images will lead to better conversion. The user experience person will say, okay, given those functional requirements, they'll then design the experience in terms of the visual experience, the information architecture, and it's very much a partnership. So I would say the reason I would just say yes, but is that product managers aren't UX designers, but what they're thinking is they're thinking externally about the customer and their journey and what are competitors doing and how can we make our experience better, and then working with a UX person to make the experience as optimized as possible.
Thanks. The reason I brought that up is because it's quite a bit of overlap. If that's the case of product, I mean, there's almost as a functional analyst or a functional architect or e-commerce analyst. I mean, depending on titles, I mean, that's no country, I guess. I mean, it's more the role of what you're doing. And what you're describing, it could also fit in different silos depending on corporate structures.
So hold your questions. We'll get at the very end of the presentation. These are all great questions. I'll talk about what is it like to be successful as a product manager in this world. What does it take? So we'll get to that in a little bit. Now we finished we've gone through the top of the funnel. So now our customer has chosen to add something to cart. Now, one of the things you'll oftentimes see is the concept of a mini cart. Now that you've added something to cart, we're not are you really done with shopping? And this is where personalization can come into play. Given that you've added this product to cart, here's some other products that you might want to consider. And these, what you see is you'll see calls to action. People like you have also bought. You'll see that on Amazon. You'll see that this is in this case from Grainger. This is oftentimes driven by a product recommendations engine, which is based on on what you're doing on the site, your implicit actions, as well as explicitly, like signals that we're getting. What products do we think would make the most sense to you? So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to build the basket. Like while you're here in the funnel and you've added this product, here's some other products that other people have oftentimes bought alongside of this one. And then cart and checkout. So now that you've decided, okay, I've added to cart all the products that I want. What we talked about is the importance of getting you through the bottom of the funnel as quickly as possible. This is an illustration of Amazon's one-click checkout. But what's going on here? What they've done is they presented all the information that you need in terms of shipping address, your options for shipping. But one other thing that retailers like to do is they want you to use their credit card. So in this case, what defaults here is the Amazon Prime credit card. The reason is twofold. One is that if you use a retailer's credit card, you tend to buy more from that retailer and your conversion tends to go up. The second thing is if you're using my credit card, I don't have to pay interchange fees to, I don't have to pay transaction fees to Visa or MasterCard and so forth. So I win both ways. And then clearly presenting the pricing, presenting here's what the regular price is, all the discounts you're getting, and what the final price is with a clear call to action to place the order. Again, trying to get you through making sure you convert in this last part of the funnel. You'd be amazed at how many people add products to cart and then for whatever reason they move on. And so you get often one of the things that retailers focus on is abandoned cart issues. And that's why you'll get emails that say, hey, you've left this thing in cart, consider coming back and buying, or here are other products that you should consider. And then post-purchase. So here's the email that you've gotten, but what is the retailer in this case doing? They're offering you the ability to view and manage your order, and if you go to the order details page, presenting a number of options in terms of returning the product, in terms of tracking the product, etc. But what we also see is product recommendations. This is yet another opportunity to engage with you and say, hey, people like you that have bought this product have also bought this product. And so the product recommendations you'll see plays out throughout the funnel, all the way from the home page through the product details page, through cart and checkout, and even the post-purchase email. Which leads to the next topic, personalization. So as we've gone through this funnel, I've been hinting at, hey, there's this element that's personalized and that element that's personalized. Personalization is, done right, can be a huge win for a B2B or a B2C e-commerce player. You can see increases in click-throughs, conversion, revenue per visit, anywhere from 20% higher and up. And it all depends on how well you do the implementation. But what drives personalization are implicit and explicit signals. Implicit signals like clickstream, like where are you clicking, in a session on a page? How much time are you spending on a page? How much time are you spending on an element within a page? Your browse history, your order history, and then this is where logging in comes into play. If you log in, I'm able to now store that information beyond the session to be able to provide an even more personalized experience the next time you come. But a lot of retailers, even if you don't log in, based on your clickstream behavior, will then personalize the experience using product recommendations / personalization engines. What they'll do is they'll say, all right, based on your browsing history or what we know about you, predict you're probably in this segment, and given that you're in this segment, you probably want these products, and then you'll see content on the site change in terms of the hero ads and the offers that you see from the home page through cart and checkout. Some retailers also do things like explicit signals. They may ask you like a 2-question questionnaire on the home page, and then based on those responses, the entire home page changes. You see that with apparel retailers. And all of this feeds into, like I was saying, all the different places that you can personalize, from the home page to search, to what the autofill is, to browse, to the filters that are shown. You can personalize the filters that are shown, to the content, the offers, and other things that you see on the site. Was there a question?
My question is, if you're a retailer that is non-Amazon, so Amazon, implicitly you have to log in because it's wider experience than shopping, right?
Mm-hmm.
for others like Sears
Mhm.
or someone like that,
Mhm.
how do you maintain, like, what's your incentive? What are the biggest challenges for getting someone to log in?
To log in, right? That's a great question. So the question is, given that we want people to log in, what incentives do we provide? You'll see a number of retailers offer loyalty programs. In other words, hey, log in and start earning rewards, earn Kohl's Cash, earn Shop Your Way points, earn this or that as an incentive, and that's like oftentimes a key incentive that's used. Or like by logging in, we'll save your information, like your credit card and other information, so it'll be faster for you to get through checkout the next time you shop. These are all these incentives. By getting you to log in and stay logged in, I can learn more about you as a customer and then personalize the experience, not just for that session, but on an ongoing basis.
So I find that when I go through e-commerce, a lot of the time you don't log in until the very end,
Mm-hmm.
where you say, log in because that's my details. That's
Right.
the main reason for logging in.
Right.
When I log in at that late stage of the funnel,
Mhm.
you won't get my browsing history or anything like that, will you? So what's your incentive to kind of make sure they log in at the very start?
Yeah, well, two things. So the question is, hey, if you oftentimes in a purchase funnel, you're prompted to log in right before you buy something. So what's the incentive to log in? So what you'll see is two things. One is that if you've logged in as part of the purchase process and exiting the funnel, oftentimes the retailer will keep you logged in. So the next time you come to the site, there's a cookie on your browser that maintains your login information so that you're staying logged in. So now the next time you come back, maybe I wasn't able to store all of your browsing history for that first part of the session, but I am, because next time you come to the site, you're logged in. Second thing is that you'll see in the upper right-hand corner, like I mentioned with Amazon, there's a prompt to sign in, and there might be like a brief value proposition on the value to sign in. Hey, sign in. Sign in to get, personalized recommendations, or sign in to participate in our loyalty program. Those are oftentimes the two big levers.
Do you find that's working for a lot of users?
Yeah, the question is, do we find it works? It does. Now, does it work perfectly? No. Do the great majority of users not, engage with that prompt? It varies from retailer to retailer, but really what it comes down to is the stronger that the proposition of the retailer, the more likely someone is to log in and stay logged in. That's one of the real powerful things behind Amazon Prime, is that I've spent $100 per year to get free 2-day shipping and all these other benefits. So that's a pretty strong incentive for me to stay logged in, because I paid for this. The only way for me to take advantage of it and for Amazon to know who I am is to stay logged in. So that's an exceptionally good incentive for Amazon. Other retailers, are working on that as well. But yeah, it's a great question. Let's switch gears a little bit to mobile. So as I mentioned, this is really what's like getting a lot of the attention in the industry, is this rapid shift of consumer behavior toward mobile. Like we mentioned earlier, 40% of e-commerce transactions are happening through mobile. But we see sort of like the same kind of general principles playing out. So you see a home page with, say, calls to action around daily deals and prompts to, get you to consider this deal because time is running out. So they've taken very much a focused approach on what sort of actions what they want you to focus your eye on, and what incentives they're providing you to click through and engage. To say to cart and checkout, which is presenting a very clear summary of what's in your cart and then making it easy for you to check out. Before I continue, was there a question?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you clearly. Did you say 14 or 40?
40%. Yeah. So the question is, what percentage of e-commerce traffic this year is mobile? And it's 40% and rising. 40% of revenue and rising. Yeah. Now, so while lots of people are engaging with mobile, one of the biggest challenges that we have in the industry is mobile conversion. So typically what you see on desktop is conversion rates of anywhere from like 3 to 4%. Tablet, lags that. But mobile, the smartphone is like half of that. Now, why is that? And we see this big disparity between the time spent on mobile, which dwarfs desktop, but like in terms of dollars spend, desktop, like historically has been stronger. Well, a lot of it comes down to the experience, like we talked about earlier, around how important the end-to-end experience is to make you comfortable in purchasing. So what do we see? Cannot see the product details. So they get to a product details page, but they don't feel comfortable having enough information to buy, or navigating is difficult. So browsing through the different categories is hard for the consumer to do. Or they can't browse multiple screens and compare products, or it's too difficult to input their details. All these things create friction points throughout the process. And we'll talk about this on the next slide, is one of the reasons why I think that we've had such a problem with mobile is that we haven't designed for mobile first. We designed for desktop, and we tried to shrink it down for mobile. Now, there's a few questions. I'll start over here.
Yeah, my question is, there is a big difference between B2C and B2B.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for B2B, Atlassian customers could interact with online activities through SEO, SEM,
Mm-hmm.
but also could talk to your account executives.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you measure the conversion, and ultimately, how do you measure ROI at Atlassian?
Okay. The question is, how do we measure, like in B2B, how do we measure conversion at Atlassian if you can talk with a customer representative? Actually, all of all of Atlassian sales are online. So you purchase online. So we have teams of folks that will act as consultants for you, answering questions, especially for larger enterprises around their products. But all of our sales are done online, and all of our sales are fixed price. So there's different tiers of end users, but it's all done online. So as a result, tracking conversion is actually pretty straightforward. Now, I think your second question is around mobile. And so mobile for B2B is growing, but it's not quite at the level of importance as it is with consumer today. And that's because, when we're in the office, oftentimes you're working on a PC or a Mac, and you're conducting a lot of your work through the desktop experience. That will change over time, and we're seeing that.
Do you have account executives? Do you have sales?
We do not. No. All of our sales are done online. So that's what makes Atlassian a pretty unique company. So we like to think of ourselves as like a B2B to C company. So there was a question over here?
Yes. So the thing is, I worked before in a fashion e-commerce company.
Oh, okay.
In the Middle East.
Uh-huh.
And there's exactly the other way around. The
Oh,
conversion rate for smartphone is exactly like that. So like double, and then the desktop is like the other way around.
Yeah,
And
go ahead.
And also the percentage
Mhm.
of the revenue share
Mm-hmm.
is also much higher.
Yeah.
So it depends, in my opinion, a lot on the region
Mm-hmm.
and how the demographics.
That's a great point. So the point is that, hey, a lot of this is sort of US-based dynamics in terms of this conversion problem. But if you go to other countries where maybe they started off mobile first, whether it's the Middle East, whether it's India, whether it's China, where you didn't actually start off on a desktop in terms of the consumerization of the society, things are even much more mobile first. That's a great point. That's a great point. Let's see. I'll ask. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Is the personalization or the algorithm behind the personalization same for mobile and desktop, or
Yes. Often, like when retailers implement personalization, whether they may build it internally, basically build the capability internally in terms of a machine learning team of data scientists and algorithms, using neural nets and things of that nature. Or if they license it, there are a number of vendors out there that provide personalized personalization engines. It's done across both platforms, because the thing is, you may start a transaction on mobile, but you'll finish it on desktop. Or you may start something on desktop and finish it on mobile. Either way, I want a single engine and a single understanding of you as a consumer in terms of how you're engaging, so I can then personalize the experience. I'll take one more question, and then I do want to make sure we cover the rest of the slides. Go ahead.
Sure. Are technologies like Face ID reducing the friction when it comes to the input of information?
There's a trend. It's an early trend with mobile commerce, which is image scanning. So, and we'll actually talk about that on the next slide? The importance of search for mobile, including image. So you're starting to see retailers experiment with basically using the camera on the phone by scanning the product, then recognizing the product, and then taking you directly to the product details page. So that's why I highlighted in terms of mobile principles. That's an incredibly important one that's starting to emerge. These are some of the mobile, like general principles I think about in terms of designing for mobile, but it all starts with designing for mobile first. And so a lot of retailers and a lot of B2B players are now trying to shift their mindset from desktop to building for a mobile experience first. In other words, what are the core components, like not everything, but what's absolutely positively necessary for you as a consumer or as a B2B customer to make a purchase decision in a smaller form factor. It's then easier to expand out from mobile to desktop, because then it's easier to go from a limited number of core things that are needed to then being able to expand it out to add additional content and features and functionality than it is to go the other way. That's why also another big trend is responsive web design. So as product managers engaging with engineers or with user experience folks, there's a big movement toward, when we build experiences, making sure that they'll work for any size device, whether it's a big screen, a tablet screen, or a mobile device. Simplified. So again, it gets at the whole concept of, in a mobile device, you have to have such an economy of features. How do you present just the features that are needed for your stage in the buying process? And if you need access to additional information or additional details on a product, having that be one swipe away. Clear calls to action, cross-device cart. So it's common, it's not unheard of for someone to start, let's say, a transaction on a mobile device, add something to cart, and then forget about it. But then maybe when they're at home, they get an email that says, hey, you've left this product in your cart, and then go on desktop to finish the transaction. So if I add something to cart, I want to be able, and I'm logged in, I want to be able to, I'll have the option to close that transaction with the consumer, whether it's on desktop or mobile. And the last thing, before I get to the very big topic under mobile, is in sending app downloads versus MWeb. MWeb is a mobile experience. So in other words, typing in, www.amazon.com versus downloading the app. Like, lots of retailers want you to download the app, because if you download the app, you are logged in. I then can push notifications to you. I can push notifications to you, and because you've downloaded the app, chances are you're going to be a more loyal customer because you went through the trouble of downloading the app. That's the good news. The bad news is that most consumers only download 2 to 3 apps for retail, and so it's incredibly competitive to be one of those 2 to 3 apps that are downloaded and actually used.
Apple's App Store terms and conditions actually say you cannot use promotional push.
Oh.
You can remove your app from the App Store if they get complaints about those types of push notifications.
Okay.
Android does not have that same restriction,
Yeah.
but heads up if you are going to do that on iOS.
Yeah. All right. Fair point. Okay.
No, but I'm a PMM. So.
Yeah. What other question?
Just quickly, you mentioned the app restriction, trying to get onto that, be that app, that 1 or 2 apps.
Right. For not a restriction, but more like just consumers they typically don't consume more than 2 to 3 apps from an e-commerce perspective on a regular basis.
So I guess my question today is kind of, what about progressive app design? Are you kind of thinking about that in a way, or is that kind of not even on the forefront?
Can you describe what you mean by progressive app design?
This term where you're building an app that mimics an app experience, but is actually accessed within the browser. I think it's
I see what you mean.
It's kind of up and coming, and I was like, is that at the forefront of kind of e-commerce, or is e-commerce still a few years back in terms of still thinking about responsive?
Yeah, the question is about progressive app design. In other words, delivering an app-like experience in a mobile web format. I'll be honest with you, I'm not familiar with that, but I mean, I'm not that surprised. You know, like given that it's so hard to be one of those 2 to 3 apps, if you're going to wind up typing in the URL, how can I then deliver an app-like experience that will keep you engaged? That's an interesting point. The last thing before we talk about what does it take to be successful is if I've gotten you to download the app, there's lots of things I can do in terms of in terms of marketing to you on a one-to-one basis through geofencing, Wi-Fi, or store beacons, basically outfitting retail stores like to be able to market in the store, or through near-field communications in the immediate vicinity of the store. And if I can do that, I can push notifications, I can push personalized offers to you, I can help you navigate through the store. If you have a wish list or a shopping list that you've created on your app, I can then help navigate you in the store and then push deals and promotions to you in the store, so it's highly personalized. That's all the good news. Now, the challenging news for retailers is to outfit stores with store beacons and to do so effectively can be expensive. So, and as retailers face challenges, that's kind of the tension that they're facing. But it's a huge opportunity. Is there a question or no? Oh, okay. All right. So I know we're a little over time, but so what does it take to be successful? At least from my experience in product management, whether it's B2B or B2C. And it's really, it's kind of, it's the same stuff that is required to be successful in any discipline in product management. It's asking these key questions like, who is my target customer? Who am I, you know, like if it's retail, who is she? Like what are her demographics? What are her psychographics? You know, like what influences her? You know, like how does she make a decision on shopping one site versus another? What's my value proposition? You know, whether it's B2B or B2C, like why should somebody come to my site? Why should somebody come to my mobile app versus some other in an incredibly competitive market? And how does the entire experience support that value proposition? Like, because because the more friction points there are in that experience, the less likely that they'll come back and become return purchasers, whether in particular in retail and also to a significant degree in B2B. Other keys to success, research. So as product managers, like use your experience, you know, whether it's the mobile app, the MWeb experience, and think about like, is this like, what are the things that I like and don't like? What would be for any consumer, what are going to be positives or friction points that will make me not want to engage with this experience? Review industry trends. There's a lot of like you'd be amazed at how much third-party research is out there and how much you can get out of it in terms of what's going on in the sector. User experience research is critical. Partner either doing it yourself or partnering with a user experience researcher. Understanding consumer habits and practices. How do they, you know, like how do they think about different sites? What do they like? What don't they like? What do they do? There's a big difference oftentimes between what people say they do versus what they actually do in practice. And then experience testing, you know, testing out concepts, testing out prototypes to see how do consumers engage with them. And do they understand them without prompting? And do they get through the different stages of the experience? A/B testing is incredibly important in B2B or B2C. Is that again, it's one thing to do a user experience research test. It's another thing to see with a statistically significant sample. Do we incent the behavior that we want to incent? And really the only way to conclusively do it is through A/B testing. And then lastly, other keys to success. In addition to thinking about your target customer, really focusing on the experience, it's also looking at quantitative metrics, knowing your metrics, and then analyzing the metrics to determine what hypotheses do I have on what may be working and what may not be working. So typical metrics that we look at, top of funnel. This is all about top of funnel is how do I get you how do I get the most number of visitors to product details pages? So product page visits divided by total visits for home page, for search, for browse. If I see drop-offs in any top of funnel metrics through search, browse, category pages, that gives me a hint on where I should look on what may be causing friction points in the funnel that may be resulting in consumers exiting or business customers exiting. Middle funnel, carts divided by product page visits. How many people are adding to cart for the number of visits that I have? What's going on, if that's lower, if it's trending lower, what may be happening on that product page? Is the content not attractive? Are the images not high definition? Are there multiple calls to action? Is it confusing? Bottom of funnel, conversions divided by cart. So once somebody's added something to cart, are they getting through cart and checkout? Are they purchasing? Are they converting? And then overall, how is our conversion doing across all of these different phases? Other things that you'll want to look at are heat maps. In other words, on the home page, on a category page, where are consumers or business customers most hovering and clicking to understand, what's working or what's not working in terms of engagement on the page. Top search and browse paths. What are the main ways that customers are getting to your product pages? Page load times. This is oftentimes overlooked. Like, well, that's more of an engineering thing. No, it's super important. So if a page takes more than 200 milliseconds to load, you start seeing drop-offs in conversion. We've all experienced this. Like, oh, it's taking forever this page to load. I'm going to go to a different site. It's hugely important. So don't overlook that as a key metric to stay on top of. What percentage of your customers are logging in versus not logging in, whether on an app or on the desktop experience. What sort of incentives can we create to get them to log in, to share information so that we can build the profile and then personalize? And then lastly, average order value, which is a function of what's the average selling price of your product, which is a function of, well, how much are you promoting? Are you creating markdowns or discounts on the product versus units per transaction? Is the experience working to build the basket? Things like mini cart or things like product recommendations to get you to add more products in terms of, and what's the trend in average order value over time? With all these metrics, it's really important to look at not just the past 30 days, but the same period, a year ago, to see year over year, are we doing better or are we doing worse for the same time period to account for seasonality? And then to look at the 12-month trend in terms of, well, are we going in the right direction overall? So that's the quick, or not so quick, walkthrough of the e-commerce world. Happy to answer any other questions you may have. Man in the back?
You talk a lot about success, but how do you go about reattracting users who've been turned off? The question is, how do you reattract users that have been turned off? That's a really difficult problem. So, and that's why, and I don't have a great answer for that, because if you've come to the site once and you had a bad experience, it could be at any part of the experience. It could be you tried searching for something, you couldn't find the right product. You went to the product page and you tried to add to cart and it didn't work. Or even like the post-order experience. You ordered something and then you tried to return it, or you tried to, through the online return, or tried to track it and you couldn't. So now you're pissed off, and so now to get you to come back is going to be that much more expensive. I may have to run, if I'm a retailer, additional promotions to get you to forget about your bad experience, which then reduces my margin. It's so much easier to generate more revenue from an existing customer than to try to attract a new one. And that's why lifetime value is such a key metric in the retail world. And it's also in the B2B world as well. Sir, right there?
Yeah, could you say a few words about how this would differ if your product is a subscription service as opposed to a cart where you're adding products that you purchase? Like, let's say the goal of conversion is to get someone to sign up for a service a la through Netflix.
Yeah.
How would that change your presentation in terms of how you market? How would you design that product differently?
That's a good question. If it's a subscription service, what I'm trying to do is I need to get you to consider the value of the subscription, which is more of a
Now you're starting to drift more into a considered purchase. It's more of a commitment on your part. So that's where you oftentimes, and this starts to get into the B2B world like that I'm in, is that I'll allow you to try the product. So let's say it's an app from our app marketplace. I'll let you try it for 30 days. And then if you like it and you buy it, then you pay a subscription for that app. Now, in the case of Netflix, if let's say I've bought the subscription, well, now I need to really focus on the experience you're getting. So like, to what degree are you engaged? Like, how often are you visiting Netflix? How often are you engaging with products on Netflix? Because here's the risk. If you're not coming back, then that increases the likelihood of your churning. So what I'll want to do is not only measure your engagement on the site, but also measure your lack of engagement on the site or where you may be bouncing out to figure out where maybe there are rough spots in the experience, or how can I then market to you like, hey, you haven't been to the site recently. Here are some movies you may be interested in. We also are looking at doing that from an app experience perspective too, because if you're not engaging with one of our apps, that increases the risk that maybe you're going to cancel the subscription. So, sir, right there.
You said before that testing is really important.
Yep.
How does Atlassian kind of test new ideas and get feedback? Like, for example, when you add something like personalization to your site,
yep.
Like how's that process?
Yeah, I mean, what we do is pretty common with any, just in general with e-commerce. It covers everything from, like earlier exploration with customers. So, like understanding habits and practices. So in my case, interviewing end users and site administrators on how do you use our products? How do they discover apps? How do they make decisions on apps? Things of that nature. By understanding how my customer thinks, I can then generate hypotheses on experiences I think they may like, and then showing them prototypes. Like, hey, here's and maybe like comparing them with competitor prototypes. We did this a lot in retail, which is maybe don't disclose who is behind the scenes interested. It's maybe retailer A, retailer B, and retailer C. I didn't tell them I'm from retailer A, to see what's their honest opinion of which of these prototypes which of these experiences they like. But then ultimately you have to A/B test. If there's any doubt, like you really need to generate a statistically significant sample to determine, well, like all things equal, like to what degree did I increase conversion, like click-throughs or conversion or revenue per visit or whatever your metric is versus the control. So it's the same regardless of where you go. Make sure I get it to everybody. I'll go next.
You mentioned that mobile gets stronger in B2B. Is this true for every part of this industry, or is it only a few sectors where this is really growing? Because personally, I don't have data, but it seems strange to me. Everyone I know works at this PC and
yeah. No, it's a great question. I don't have that much data either. But what I will say is my hypothesis is that's why I think like B2B has lagged in mobile adoption, mainly because as information workers or IT decision makers, you're working on a PC all day, and who you're buying for they're also working on PCs all day. I think with B2B, you probably see in the near term more extensions of, hey, whatever app I'm working on through my desktop, I can access through mobile. We see that all the time. In terms of purchasing through mobile, that's where I think you probably see more adoption in B2C-like sectors like Grainger, like Office Max, like Amazon. Amazon's made a big push in terms of B2B, but more for physical goods. For software products, like whether it's Microsoft Office, it'll come, but everything I've read or experienced, I haven't seen the same adoption. Sir back there?
Can you talk a little bit about your decision-making process when it comes to metrics versus intuition?
Mm-hmm.
I'll frame it a little bit. I work at a small company, and we struggle. I wouldn't say we struggle, but we make most of our decisions based on intuition,
Mm-hmm.
like competitors.
Yep.
How do you find the right balance between that and metrics-driven decisions?
Yeah. So I think you have to be a little careful about intuition. So it's like the way to think about it is intuition is a hypothesis, and it's good to formulate a hypothesis. We do it all the time. I do it all the time. I may have no data on something, so I'll formulate a hypothesis. Given what I know, I think that business-to-business customer, a B2C customer would like this. Now what I need to do is validate that hypothesis using data. So I might look at third-party data. Like, what are the key questions that I have? Is there third-party data or data inside of my company that can answer some of these questions? Then I'll look at qualitative research, like doing user experience research to test out, to understand, well, like how do my customers engage and how would they react? How do they react to this concept? I might then do prototyping, where they don't know that it's me and my company that's behind this prototype. And then based on that, so in those early signals, then A/B testing to validate it. So there is a role for intuition, but it's really another way of saying formulating a hypothesis with limited data, but you have to validate it. Otherwise, I mean, you can launch things and maybe you get lucky, but it's a higher degree of risk in terms of, like, I might have spent a ton of engineering work or a ton of design work to launch something that then falls flat with customers, where I could have validated or gotten signals on that hypothesis in a lot less costly way by doing qualitative research or then ultimately A/B testing. Ma'am, back there?
That was actually a good question set up for my question. So how do you think with prioritizing metrics, and how do you benchmark them, or like how do you know whether your metric is good or bad?
Mm-hmm.
And did the priority change pre-IPO and post-IPO?
Well, I wasn't there pre-IPO, so I can't answer that. But what I can say is, like, how do you how do you prioritize metrics? So I think the starting point is, like, what key questions do you have about your customer and how they're engaging? And the second is, what behavior do you want to incent? And then that drives, well, what metrics are important to me in terms of ensuring that I'm getting the results that I want to get. That's why I sort of outlined a number of these metrics in terms of top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. All those are important. Like logged in versus not logged in, also important, again, because it's tied into, well, what behavior do I want to incent? You also hear people talk about leading metrics and lagging metrics. Leading metrics that sort of provide early indications that you may be on the right path to something. And lagging metrics are things like revenue. Well, because I've done things right, therefore I'm seeing like conversion rates go up, or I'm seeing revenue increase. But maybe leading metrics might be the type of traffic I'm attracting to the site, or I'm seeing an increase in customer satisfaction, things of that nature. But the main questions are, like, what do you prioritize needing to know about your customer, and what are you trying to incent them to do through the funnel to drive business results? Sir?
Just if you have any thoughts on, like, more traditional third-party marketplace or tool sets where you're not just selling the end product, but you're providing that service. I mean, not everybody's Amazon and gives that value.
Yeah.
How do you differentiate yourselves doing that? So say you're like Shopify.
Yeah.
Pretty big too. But
Yeah.
Smaller companies.
Like a smaller marketplace.
What do you focus on? Use a tool set to drive more eyeballs.
Yeah.
Tool set on the back end.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's one that I've wrestled with, and yeah, exactly. I wrestled with my prior company. I wrestled with today, and so you have to serve both. I mean, a marketplace, it's the supply and the demand side, right? So the supply, whether it's apps or whether it's third-party sellers that want to sell on your site, like, they're going to have certain demands in terms of what capabilities you provide to them, like in order to get started. Developer tools for a developer to build an app, or onboarding tools for a third party to sell products on your site. But what really drives it is the demand side, because if you don't have the demand side, then the suppliers won't come. Now, so it is a balance, but you have, like, I've seen that there is a risk that it's sometimes easier to focus on the supply side and why is that? Well, because I'm talking with Joe retailer who wants to sell on my site, or I'm talking with this app vendor all the time, and there's a risk of taking your eye off the ball, which is, well, What does my business-to-business customer want in terms of apps? How should I be selling to them? What does my B2C customer want in terms of product? How can I optimize the sale of third-party product on the site? Because if I don't do that right, like no matter, I could do everything I can to attract supply, but if they're not generating sales on my site or my marketplace, they'll go elsewhere. Good.
Going back to B2B, and you guys mentioned that you don't have any specific pricing differentiation for different customers for the amount of volume they buy, they're just tiered status and so on and so forth.
And the reason is that it makes the buying decision easier. So it's like there's no negotiation. We also attractively price the products.
No, I totally understand. So your products are software-based products. Some of them may be SaaS, some of them be on-prem. They're not just, let me say, go click and it's just shrink wrap and you go, I get sent in a CD format or a DVD format. Or you actually, you don't even download it at that point. You actually have a full implementation because it has to be fully integrated with, if it's Jira product, I mean, you actually have a B2B product for, tracking and everything. You can put product information, you can put, information on what the bugs are going on, what kind of system deployment is maybe happening at a client side, and so on and so forth. I mean, you're not just selling a product, you're selling a service too.
Correct.
I mean, it could be you, it could be a third-party implementation party that might be doing it for you. So how does that actually, how does that impact, a product development from your point of view? I mean, how do you actually do that without any? I'm kind of baffled. If I actually went to your site, probably would know that. But I guess, how do you actually do the whole end-to-end? Because somebody might be evaluating it, but somebody else might be writing the check. And some implementations could be large enough for mid-sized companies that they actually need a board approval to actually deploy the kind of resources or commitment for 5-year, $50 million purchase order that you guys might be getting. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So the question is like, how do you think about the sale? Like when it could be one person buying the product and others using and evaluating the product. So is that your question, or how would you summarize it?
One person really doesn't buy the product at a corporate environment.
Right. There's like a buyer, but then there's a lot of influencers, and there can also be an approver and so forth. That's right.
Generally speaking, I mean, if you're going to talking to SAP or if I'm talking to Salesforce, I mean, I have a sales rep who are actually trying to give me a demo. They're sending me sales engineer saying, I will do this. And how I will integrate it to your other software. I mean, because it's not standalone. It could be, if it's payment, it might be linked to Paymetric, or it might be linked to some other payment gateway aspect of it, with encryption and PCI compliance. I mean, so how do you sell a standalone product without services? That's what my on a B2B site with no price.
Yeah. So the way we sell it, especially with our cloud products, is you can buy the product with a credit card. We allow you to try the product. You can, like, above a certain number of seats, you can talk with a representative, but you can buy the product you can first try the product. You can try the product out. With our cloud product, we'll then generate an instance, a full instance, for you to then try out the product and see if you like it. Oftentimes our purchasers aren't necessarily, they're not like big, like a big procurement organization that's immediately buying for tens or hundreds of thousands. It might start off at a team level, let's say 10, 20 or more folks in an organization. And then once it's adopted by that team, it then oftentimes gets adopted by other parts of the company. But I hope I'm answering your question, but basically we allow you to try the product for 30 days, to try the full instance, to experience it. And then basically ask you to pay for it. And our conversion rates are good. And the reason is that the quality of the product, and so the quality of the product, not just in terms of features and functionality, but also the stability of the product in a cloud environment and, the reliability of the product. It also helps that, like our products, like have been in market for quite some time, have become the industry standard, like Jira, for example, for project management, Confluence increasingly for enterprise wiki. So it's not just you trying out the product for the first time. You've never heard of this company. There's a lot of momentum in the industry, not just like within one vertical, but across lots of verticals where the product has been widely adopted. So
you still buy it online?
Yeah, you buy it online.
So I think your question, to be honest, their products are very low touch. So I remember taking the Jira in 2011, experimenting with it. So all I had to do is pay $10,
on a credit card, get a sandbox, implement it. I showed it to the team liked it, and over 3 years we built about 600 licenses.
That's exactly right.
But the sandbox is very important that we provide.
Right.
It's very low touch. You don't need services. It's
No.
very like you can do it on your own.
Exactly.
So you make it simpler. While a complicated SaaS product, you'll need a services to come and customize it.
Right.
So do you integrate? Did you integrate Jira with anything else to
Yeah.
automate it?
Yeah, that's where every
Services cost extra, products flat.
Got it. Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Yes, that is.
Okay.
To be direct returning customers. That means because every time when I go to a new company, I get a new email address, a new account.
Okay.
So do you track that? Because like on the other side, it can be happening that like Jira is going down because no new user coming in. You just see like the increase because people are just the Jira experience goes to new companies and they're just opening new instance. And the old one is old companies still using it. So it's like
Yeah, we don't see just because somebody has actually left one company to go to another company. Oftentimes they'll then say, "Hey, Jira was great," and then that company then or that team or that company then acquires Jira. And so for that and among other reasons, our growth year over year is 40%. We're doing really well. In large part because people are having a great experience with the products. And as the points were made earlier is that they're pretty easy to set up, and they're easy for teams to buy. And then oftentimes what starts off as a great experience for a small team then spreads to other parts of the organization.
I know you guys use Salesforce communities. Could you tell me what you guys use it for sales or mainly for servicing and providing knowledge to the customer?
Yeah, honestly, I can't speak to that much to that. We do have community sites. I'm not familiar with whether we use Salesforce or not in terms of setting up those sites. But we have at Atlassian a very rich community, not just of end users, online and offline users, but also a big community of third-party developers. I can't speak to what software package is used. Last question? Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong. To me, after today's presentation, a lot of tasks look like more like digital marketing's job. So, what's the role does product management play here?
So product management owns the end-to-end experience. So when I ran Sears.com and Kmart.com, I was responsible for the end-to-end experience from the homepage, search and browse, product details pages, cart and checkout, and so forth. I had product managers on my team that were responsible for different components of that experience. The role of marketing is not owning the experience. The role of marketing is how do you drive traffic to the site, oftentimes through paid advertising. So in other words, marketers have a budget, say of $1 million. And then they determine what are the best ways for the marketer to allocate that budget across paid search, across digital advertising, and so forth. Another role within retailers is that of the merchandiser. So the merchandiser then determines, okay, what offers do I then put on the pages? For an appliance merchandiser will say, okay, should we run a 50% off promotion? Should we run a 25% off promotion, and so forth? So we provide the experience, the canvas, the slots in which, they can present ads on the home page, or in other parts of the site. And they then determine what are the offers that are going to go in there. But we own the end-to-end flow and the end-to-end experience. We as product managers also own the metrics in terms of, is conversion happening the way we want it to happen or not happening? And then determining what are the root causes. If it's not happening, what needs to change? Do we need to change the experience? Are there certain friction points in the experience? But as product managers, as a product manager, I've also gone to the marketing org and to the merchandising org to say, hey, the way you're presenting these promotions is confusing. Based on our user experience research, based on looking at competition, here's a different way we should approach it. But I, as the product manager, don't own spending dollars to attract traffic to the site. I also don't own what promotions run on the site. I do own the whole end-to-end experience. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I enjoyed the conversation.